The following is a production of the Dallas Genealogical Society. For more information, please visit our website at dallasgenealogy.org. Thank you all for your support, and now I'm going to ask Sue to come up here and introduce our speaker. I'm going to do some Zoom magic, I hope.
I don't have slides and I'm not touching anything.
Mark New.
Our speaker today is Sue Kaufman. She is an Illinois native, currently the local history and genealogy librarian at Peoria, Illinois Public Library. But she's come full circle. She returned to Peoria in 2023 to reclaim her very first job from 1987 as the local and history genealogy librarian. Prior to her return, she managed a nationally recognized family history research collection for 17 years. That's the Houston Public Library Family History Research Center at the Clayton Library campus. Prior to that, she served as a reference librarian at the Allen County, Indiana Public Library Genealogy Center, the largest family history research collection in the United States in a public library. Over her 30-year career, Sue's received numerous awards, but let me just highlight some of her service and awards. She served on Genealogical Society boards in Illinois, Indiana, Texas, and with the Federation of Genealogical Societies. She is a past president of the Texas State Genealogical Society and now serves as its director of education. She's received NGS, National Genealogical Society Award for genealogical librarianship. And what is a special note, she's a distinguished fellow of the Texas State Genealogical Society. Now I'm looking at Stephanie because Sue also is a recipient of the Lloyd DeWitt Boxstruck Distinguished Service Award. Her career has been focused on preservation, education, and promotion of library resources and services. Welcome, Sue.
Okay, well, I'll tell you, you guys, can you hear me, Tony? Okay, because you
We can even
guys
see
were
you.
huh?
We can even see you now, too.
Okay, good, because you guys were freezing just a minute ago while Sue was talking. So let's see how we do. Let's see. From the beginning. Yeah.
We're seeing your notes page.
Okay, wait, hang on. All right, yeah. So let me switch. Okay, are we there?
No. Now,
No.
oops.
Now are you?
Looking good.
Okay, Tony, if anything really happens, text me, okay? Because I got my phone. Okay. All right, everybody. We're super excited about this. I really, technology is the big change, and look at how we're limping through it. I want to thank everybody, and especially for coming today, and for DGS to inviting me to talk about what a retrospect of genealogy and family history. For my experience, the last 40 years being a genealogy librarian, for your experience, 70 or 90, depending on who or you talk to. So we're going to go through what I think has happened to doing family history research. It was funny talking and looking at Tony's presentation. We have some of the same slides, but just think about where we have come since we really started doing genealogy, and some of the things that have changed. We used to use floppy disks and handwritten charts. We used to say to somebody, "Do you have a pedigree chart when you come in the library?" And now you say that and people look at you like you're kind of crazy. They just want to get online, which is great. Cloud-based family trees. Scrolling through microfilm at the library, and now we have instant keyword searches online. How easy and challenging, I suppose, has that made it for us? DNA testing, expensive, a blood sample. Or as an example, when I was born in 1960, they asked my mother, did she want a boy or a girl? Because of course there were no DNA tests, or you didn't do the testing of the babies. And my mother said, all I want is a redhead. And she got him twice. So I guess that worked. Divine intervention versus DNA. $100 with a simple cheek swab. Roots, remember that in 1977. And then we have the digital dawn of the personal computer, online records, web connection, the DA boom, and AI and virtual reality. And I'm going to show you some of those things. But you know, even though stuff has changed, the basic habit, the basic research process has remained the same. We still need to research plan. You need to know what you want to know, or be aware of if you're going on a fishing expedition, which is fine also, being discerning in what kind of records, or at least your antennas going up when you begin to look at records. And also learning how to find out what you want to find out is really very, very, very important, because that's going to help you get the answer. A colleague of ours says, knowing the history eliminates the mystery. And so getting a background also gives you a strength in what it is that you're trying to research, and some information. I mean, if you've never had a Revolutionary War ancestor and you don't know how to do Revolutionary War research, why wouldn't you learn? If you need to fix a car, you learn how to fix a car. If you want to know how to knit, you learn to know how to knit. So same process. Formulating your research questions is still the same. Who do you want to work on? What do you want to know about that person? When and where are you researching? And then, of course, our charts and notes and evaluating the research. Using notes, using charts to see what it is that we're doing, to gather our information and to keep us organized, and looking at our research, or having someone else, because we know how much of a collaborative pursuit family history is. Give your notes to somebody else and have them look at it and see what happens. All right, so then also why we research remains the same. We're still discovering our personal past. We want to discover stories. We want to discover documents. We want to share things with family, friends, and a lot of us love the mystery. A lot of us are very tenacious, almost like a little terrier, digging and digging and digging and digging until you find something or eliminate something. And that is the tenacity, I think, that many of us do carry in this pursuit. But what has changed? Okay, so dynamic time, the move of time, actually impacts technology, society, and education. And those are the three sort of themes that I'm going to talk about today. But dynamic time also creates opportunities for research, advancements through time, as we have seen. In fact, we were talking about the cemetery indexing, and a plethora, I just wanted to use that word, a plethora of knowledge bases. There is so much out there. How do you know which one is the best one? Again, not my original term, but the best one is the one that has your answer in it. So leaving no stone unturned is very, very, very important. So apparently some guy named Anthony Hansen wrote on this picture. There seems to be two people, Anthony and Tony. But this I found, I'd like to thank Sue and Tony and Stephanie for some of the photo archives that are going to be kind of a hoot in a while. So let's just jump into technology and let's look at that computer for a moment. And I think when I show a lot of these pictures, either we're going to say it out loud or we're going to say it in our heads. I remember that, and I bet you all have stories about some of these things that I'm going to show. And if you do, I would just like right now to say, write those stories down, because once we're gone, those stories are gone, and it's all part of our family history. And come on, do you think our kids or our grandkids remember a computer that looked like that? Look at that keyboard, for goodness sakes. All right, so let's look at how technology has revolutionized family history throughout the time. DNA, big, big, big thing. I think from a information service provider perspective, which is my perspective, and also as a researcher, I think when DNA came out, everybody thought that it was going to be sort of the answer to how we are all related. I think it's the answer to we are related. How we are related still is documents, books, and discoveries. You get those matches, and the next question is how. The digitization of records. Tony showed the area that you have there at DGS. When I was in Houston, we had Family Search there. The libraries have digitization projects. It is not just the big guys. It's little libraries. It's big libraries. And you can find things, and I'm going to show you a case study in a little while that took me I'd say almost 25, 30 years to find. Because of digitization, I found it. Online databases, society made, commercially made, individually made, and artificial intelligence. The big thing now, GPT, and I'm going to show you something called Notebook LM. This is a Google product. But you know what? Sometimes we still have to go back to the tried and true methods. How many of us remember this microfilm reader, and either you hit your head or you got too excited and it maybe fell towards you, or it was just an amazing piece of machinery that you got to see records on. And then, of course, at the library, those file cabinets filled with microfilm. And I would like to mention, by the way, that some of these things and a lot of these things are still viable resources, because not everything is digitized. And we'll talk about why. But you know, all those microfilm cabinets that are up there at the library or in every library that you go to, check them out, because I bet you'll find some unusual material that you wouldn't find anyplace else. So we had that microfilm reader, and now you might remember we advanced to this thing called, at one point we called their Zytrons. I want to know, first of all, there's a couple things about this picture that I want to know. I want to know why this looks like it's in some sort of chest, some sort of treasure chest. And there is this guy back here in green tights. So I think that might be a talk for around the cake afterwards. Maybe Tony has a story about that, or somebody that's been in the society. But we got microfilm. We got the ability to make copies of microfilm, which then, of course, just caused more paper. Or with modernization, we can put them on flash drives. So we had that big machine, then we get the Zytrons, and now we even have the, I can't think of what they're called, but I know you guys have them. They're the little round things, and you pull the tray out, because I have them too. So, so it becomes more modern as time goes on. So there were records that weren't microfilmed, that were just in places. Microfilming came along, digitization of microfilm, and onto our flash drive and into our own research. Then we got computers. Look at those, right? I can remember when I was in college at Southern Illinois. I'd also like to mention that Tony and I share that university, Southern Illinois University in Carbondale. Different times, but I can remember being in the computer lab and filling out cards and just running the cards, and look at our phones now, right? So technology and computers. From typewriter to PC, computing milestones. 1873, we got the modernization of the typewriter, or it's going mainstream. Digital computer in 39. 1951, the big La Bamba. The Census Bureau first purchases the commercially available computer. 64, standardizes software. IBM is rolling out the first mass-produced operating system. In 65, the microcomputer increases the accessibility. I know none of what these words mean. I'm just reading this. 1976, we get the supercomputer, and then in 1983, the personal computer. And I can remember my father. It had to be about 1987, 1989. My father, I go to see him. I was here in Peoria, and my father says, I've got Prodigy. And I thought to myself, and he shows me this little computer, and we had actually gotten a small Apple computer here in Peoria. And I said to my father, I said, what are you going to do with that, Dad? Because Dad would buy everything, I mean, he would buy, to the day he died, he bought the TV commercial stuff. But I mean, I can honestly remember saying that to him. And if we think about it, we grew up without computers. We got computers, and I think a lot of us might have some control of what it is we're doing. But I think we ought to give ourselves a pat on the back for what we had to learn with a huge learning curve with what in the world are you going to do with that, Dad? All right, so here, let's talk about the history of genetic genealogy. There happens to be a website, the International Society of Genetic Genealogy. And what I did was, here's a little history of the genetic genealogy coming in. So in 1875, Darwin is out there looking for surnames to estimate the frequency of first cousin marriages. I'd like to see that research and where he researched. And so then the next thing is we got the Y chromosome breakthrough in 2000. We got public testing, family tree DNA, and the Oxford ancestors begin offering first genealogy tests to the public. The field arrives, prominent science journals declare. This is when everyone starts adopting all this. And this is another learning curve that I never, ever, ever got into to this day, because I happen to be completely almost pure Ashkenazic Eastern European, like 99.8%. And you would think I would want to try and find relatives, but I'm running into a lot of endogamy and I don't understand the centimorgans. So I'm collecting my family stories. That's what I do. 2005, National Geographic, the Genographic project. And then by 2006, it is a $60 million industry. I think we all either knew of taking a DNA test or took somebody that took a DNA test. And now we have seen sort of an evening out of DNA tests, but they're still out there. Again, where should you test? I first tested with family tree DNA because of that Jewish history. That's a large Jewish Eastern European database. We know what Ancestry has in terms of numbers. And that is where you importantly begin to think about how you're going to utilize this technology and what it can do for you, because there is a lot out there. One of the biggest things, of course, that technology has done is the accessibility of records. And here we have some historic photos of the library, which I thought were great. Okay, accessibility of records. How many of you remember this? I'm going to leave this here for a minute. Okay, yeah, I'm just going to leave that here. And if the person next to you is looking at this funny, please let them know what it is. Okay. So, yeah. It's interesting. So I lived in Houston for 20 years, right? And I came from, like Dallas, a major city, all kinds of stuff, millions of people, funding in the libraries. I don't even think I saw a mailbox in Houston. I moved back to central Illinois, which is basically like the 20th century, and we have mailboxes. I have put mail in a mailbox. I have stamps. I actually have checks for my checking account. So this is all technology. Think about, as I talk about this, think about how it's impacting our lives and what it has done for you. GEDCOMs. Okay, when GEDCOMs came along, it made everybody the availability to talk to other different computer programs so families or other people could share your ancestry and open up more researchers and open up more exchanges of information. So that was one thing. So now you're not working in a silo. You're not sitting in a library with a few people and then having to send a letter that's going to take 2 or 3 weeks to get to, and then it's a month before you get something back. Thank goodness for email now. I'd also like to mention the blessing and the curse of technology. We can just internalize that for a moment also, but this allowed a lot of collaboration. But then again, there's still the books. And really, there is nothing like searching a book. And even though there is a lot of digitization, and we're going to talk a little while in a minute about why not everything is digitized, it is important to go and look at the book. So here's some old school technology, if you will, that we entered into, but still is very valuable. So, as we advance, it's important to remember that there still is another way of doing it, that for reasons or not, you still have to do it that way. Ancestry, of course, we're sitting at computers, we're hunting for hours. I'd like to remind people to get up every once in a while. That's another thing as an information provider. I have noticed that when someone comes to do research, they often forget about food, which I don't. They often forget about maybe going to the restroom every once in a while. Oh, I have to go to the bathroom all of a sudden. And the directiveness, and all of a sudden it's time to close. And then usually the next question is, can I have a cot, please? Because I will need to research my ancestors more. No one ever wants to leave. But trust me, your ancestors aren't going anywhere. And if you're lucky, they might become digitized. So there is that. So it's okay to go home and come back the next day. When I mentioned about which database, where to look, I just thought I'd pull up a little bunch of statistics here so you can see what actually has happened in the grand scheme of things. Remember, in the 1930s, when DGS might have started, or even in the 1950s, we did not have any of this technology. We were looking at books, we were taking trips. Ancestry, over $1 billion in revenue, 65 billion records online, 27 million people in the DNA network. More than 89 markets globally, DNA. Records from 88 countries of origin, and 21 plus billion ancestral profiles. 1 billion searches are handled by Ancestry per month. I think you guys you should be very proud of the number that you guys have to your website. That is absolutely amazing. Billion generated photos, 3 million paying subscribers. And I think that's an interesting statement. Paying subscribers. People ask me where I have my stuff. I actually have my stuff on Family Search because I worry that, Ancestry, because it is a public company. I think that those are things that you have to think about when you decide where you're putting your material. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying you should, because exposure is so important. It's just a consideration. Okay, so if we go to Family Search, not as pretty, has over 13 billion historical records. Digital images published, 5.8 billion. Digital books online, 649,000, almost 700,000 digital books. And if you aren't using the Family Search digital books, and I know you guys probably know a lot about it because you have Family Search there, so you're sensitive to it, but you really need to let everybody know about this. And you do need to search the books separately. When you go to Family Search and you click on search, there is no way that they're searching the book. So you have to go to the digital library separately, and I can show you that. Family Search Centers, 6,400. There are databases available at Family Search Centers that libraries do not have, so you should check that out. You can see monthly visits, 3.84 billion sources, and 1.78 billion on family trees. MyHeritage has over 36 billion records with 7,512 collections. Those collections are made up of directories, public records. You can see birth and death, marriages, maps, Histories and memories, schools and universities, military, government land, immigration. They also have books. They also have family trees, newspapers, and photos. So you can see that when you ask, which one should I go to? These are just the big three. And sure, there's duplication, but there is also unique content. And that's what you're looking for, unique content. And it's not always the big guys. But when you try and find some of the big guys and you wonder what is new, there is a card catalog at Ancestry. And if you're not familiar with the card catalog, you should, because this is a way to find out what collections are available for you. On Ancestry, when you go to search and you click down on search and you go to the search menu, there is a drop down there that says card catalog. And that's how you get to the card catalog. You can search by title, you can search by keyword, but also you can search by date added. So you can see what is new and what maybe has been updated or what you haven't looked through before. When you begin to use the card catalog, that's very directed researching. You're looking for, as an example, let's see, funeral home records in Pittsburgh in 1870. That's what you've identified, okay? Unfortunately, for some odd reason, there's only 0 records there, so that database isn't going to do you any good, but it begins to help you with your reasoning and culling out some of the noise when you use something as directed as this, versus the big, what I call the magic box search from the homepage, which is useful also because that's an amazing way to discover things that you might not have even thought of. Family Search also will publish what's new. They have a blog. Oh, I'm sorry. This is Family Search. This is not Ancestry. This is Family Search. They have a blog that you can go to and subscribe to and list. And then also in your new collections, you can see. But also see where it says expanded collection. That means that it already existed. So there are more records being added. It's always interesting to look at when you look at the time period of records. So if we look at this Italy record and the fourth one down, the record is from 1809 to 1908. There's only 2,000 records in there. So just as an aside, when you're using all this technology and you see that, you still have to be critical, if you will, and say, well, there's only 2,000 records and it's this 100-year time period. So why aren't I seeing these things? Sometimes I think with technology, and of course with books too, you kind of pshaw stuff off and not really think about why it isn't that way. I just didn't find out what I was looking for. We're going to talk about the movement of society in a second. Google, in terms of technology, I mean, as a reference librarian, I can tell you that it is competition for me, but it sure is nice to go in and put in just a sentence almost. I want to know about Iowa railroad lines in the 1940s. And you don't have to really think about search terms. You can put in basically a question, and this is what Google has done also. Also, I did one, what occupations in Dallas, Texas in the 1800s. Again, just it's amazing from someone who has built their career on finding things and the change in the ease of which when someone has a question and the instantaneous gratification of Google or the phone and going to it. If you are not using WorldCat, which is a worldwide catalog, library catalog, you should be. And if you aren't using it for something behind more than books, you should be. This is an amazing accessibility tool that you need to access. So you go to worldcat.org and you can see, I just searched for cattle brands, but what we're talking about here is the type of material that is included in WorldCat. And of course, the filter is over on the left-hand side with your results. So, okay, there's some books, but also there's theses and dissertations and manuscripts about cattle brands. So there's also downloadable articles, and there's also archival material. So when I clicked on the archival material, what I found was Texas cattle brands, and this material is there in Arlington. But what this is it actually is a poster. I have two. Oh, here we go. Okay, so see, it's a poster. And what it does is shows cattle brands of Texas, with a description of the brand, the name of the ranch or the rancher. All right. So when you're trying, let's say you got it in your own head. I mean, I know I don't have to tell you this, but okay, so your family's a rancher, you want to see their brands. Where can I find some history of the brands? Not only at the county that were registered, okay, but what else is there? Here's a poster. And then see all these hot links here. This is where you're going to go for hours and hours and hours. And you're just going to click on these and it'll bring you more material. Sometimes there is a link to the digital images in WorldCat, but more often than not, you need to go to the library, the hot link of the library, and see if there's a digital image this way. This is basically just a library catalog. Okay? So you're going to be able to find manuscripts. So this is all accessible material. You just have to know where to look for it and how to use the database. So here's an example of some digitization that came along that I just discovered in December of 2023. I had been looking for this information since probably about 1994. My father, my great-grandmother, Gisela Kaufman, came over, so my father's side, came over, and on her ship passenger list, it said that she was going to see Carl Kaufman. Had an address. She came over in 1904. I found her in the 1910 census, but I don't see Carl. In fact, I find her with some other guy named Aaron Kemp and a couple other kids. So I would say to my father, Dad, are you sure that she came over? Because my dad did not remember his mother's father, his grandfather. No, it's his father's father, his paternal grandfather. So I just never really believed it because I never found him. I couldn't find, I mean, I searched indexes. I wrote, and this is New York City. I wrote New York City, back in the time, used a mailbox. And so then one day I'm reading some sort of newsletter and I see that naturalization records from the Queens and the Bronx and covering this time period have been digitized. So I knew that they lived in the Bronx because that's where they were that's where she was in the 1910 census. So I went in and I found my grandfather Emil, not Carl, my grandfather Emil's naturalization, and all digitized at this website from I think it's not the New York Public Library. I think it's called Bronx Naturalizations or something. And so I'm sorry. So I found this naturalization of my great grandfather Carl, but in it also I found, this is my grandfather Emil's naturalization. I found Carl's death certificate. So this is from 1994 until 2023 when I finally found this stuff digitized, that I found, in fact, Carol died in 1907, which is why I never saw him. I never saw him on a census, and I never actually found him on a ship passenger list yet. So it took that long for the digitization to come along. But I also wanted to mention that when I opened it up in Acrobat, and if you look over on the right side of the screen, it looks as if Acrobat is now also doing some sort of AI translation synopsis, because there's a declaration of intention, which is what the whole file is. But then in there is that certificate of death. And we know because it says Carol Kaufman. So you've now got AI in Acrobat. But it took that much time. And the reason is because it's not low hanging fruit. there's not a big return on investment. Digitization is very, very, very expensive. It's time consuming. We know that because we do it at home. And the professional companies, as an example, the Peoria Public Library has to pay $385,000 for a perpetual license to the Peoria Journal-Star newspaper from 1951 through 2012 to Newsbank because of the cost of the digitization. So when these big guys come in and do digitization, they're going to want to spend the time in doing things that are going to return on investment. So that's why these naturalizations that were in the Bronx, although important documents, probably took that long to digitize. The other thing is copyright. Copyright is public domain before 1929, 1930. Anything after 1929, 1930, there's some other rules up to 1964, 1967. But basically, if it shows a copyright, or if it's after 1986, I think, we can't digitize it because copyright is still in force. So that's why it is important to cull the stacks, because there's stuff there, whether it's at Dallas, whether it's at a little library like mine now, where your family is from, there is content there that resides no place else. As an example, we here at Peoria, Dan Fogelberg is from Peoria. We have this collection that is not going to be digitized because, number one, none of the big guys are going to want to do it. Number two, it's expensive. We could do it in-house. It's going to take a long time. Okay? So you have these collections. You know of the local history collection upstairs at Dallas Public. You have these things that don't get digitized, and that's why technology is fabulous. But you cannot give up the historical methods of the way we've been doing research. This is an index to newspaper clippings that we have in a vertical file in manila folders that were cut out of the newspaper. This was a store in Peoria. None of this stuff is going to be anyplace else. And so you have got to marry the technology, the thought process, the searching, the formulating of research, the evaluation. You still have to marry those two. One of the big and interesting things about the Family Search Digital Library is it has gone to and reached out to smaller libraries to digitize some of the books. This is where the 700,000 books are. And Dallas should be very proud, as I am from Houston. And actually, I don't know if I move this way or this way. You can see that we have a scanner here in Peoria. So we are very proud to be part of this Family Search project. And in fact, Dallas at this point has almost 10,000 books, 9,100 books that have been digitized and are on the Family Search Library. The way that you can get it when you want to see it is to see the Dallas Public Books specifically. Whoops, let me go back. When you do when you go to the first screen, if you click on the word search here, that box over on the left-hand side, you'll see, and you can pick Dallas Public, and then you can click on that, and it will give you just the Dallas Public collection. So you can begin to search with inside that collection. But remember, 9,000 books of what's there at the library is nothing. Again, we're talking about copyright and we're talking about content. Interestingly, I thought, just to show you, that of the 9,000 books, I found the St. Nicholas Society of New York. This is coming from Dallas Public. And here happens to be, this is Henry Leroy Finch. He's the president of the society in 1950. So this society, I guess, depending on when you look, was maybe before DGS. But the society was founded, just to wonder what it is, in 1835 by a group of prominent New York City gentlemen, including Washington Irving, as a membership organization dedicated to preserving knowledge of the history and customs of the New York City Dutch forebears. Well, I would like to hopefully that maybe one of you that's listening says to themselves, I think I ought to look at this book. It's on Family Search, or you could trot down to the library to see what else is there. Okay. All right. So let's talk a little quickly about what kind of things have happened in society. This is kind of actually my favorite part. All right. So we went through the Industrial Revolution. We can see that, we got mechanization, steam power, mass production, automation, computers. All these things are impacting our life. Every single generation has something that impacts their life. We've gone through it, our ancestors gone through it, our kids are going to go through it. The microwave, talk about something that really helped everyone, I suppose. But there we are. So the microwave has come. Now here's the evolution of telephone that has come and the impact of society. I am convinced that these two pictures are the biggest impact of society because at one point you had the phone. You didn't know if people called. You didn't have to return phone calls. Then we got the answering machine. The answering machine was the end of not hearing, how come you didn't call me back? Where are you? I want to talk to you. What took you so long? Whatever it is, that was the beginning of calling people back and what I think is a pretty heavy duty responsibility. And one that I kind of ignore now, much to my sister's chagrin, because she apparently really adopted the answering machine mentality. And if I don't respond to her via text now on top of it, immediately it's just the end of the world. So I curse the answering machine. The other thing, the other thing, the technology, this is from a website, and I have a slide at the end with a couple things that I'm mentioning in the presentation, so I'll remind you of some of these things. This is a website that I love. It's called the Food Timeline, and it goes way back. But since we're talking about the 70 years, I thought I'd pull these things up. And just to look at, as we're talking about technology being the overall umbrella of the drive of change, look at some of the things that have come in because of technology. Okay. So here we have, let's see, Cheese Whiz. Okay. I mean, you mix a bunch of chemicals together, there's your technology. All right. I mean, Gatorade, high fructose corn syrup. That was a development in our lifetimes. How many of you remember PDQ? What about round sandwich bread? What does that mean? You can click on these, and what happens is it takes you to a whole story. It takes you to the history of all these things. It's very, very, very interesting. Again, remember, there's a difference between genealogy and family history. You are writing family history. You could click on TV dinners and learn all about TV dinners. And maybe you have a picture from your family sitting around the dining room table with the TV table, tray or whatever we called it, sitting in front of the TV with the silver with Sarah Lee or whatever it was. Swanson, remember? Okay. Look, we got Yukon Gold potatoes. Were that like genetically modified to look at garden burgers now, if that's not a technological advance. Okay. And then here, broccolini, tofu turkey. And then, of course, we have flat iron steak, funnel cakes. I don't know what this is, but you can look that technology even affected the food and society. And what does it look like if you look at and you begin to look at, so, okay, here's the 50s and the 60s, instant mashed potatoes, brown and served bacon, carnation instant breakfast, fast food chicken sandwiches, Slurpees. But you begin to look at this and you get this marshmallow peeps. You get this picture of society and what's happening and the changes that we are going through. Okay, bad picture of the baby seat, but honestly, let's talk about that's changed. Let's talk about how cars have changed, and let's talk about how sports have changed, even to where now there's a timer on the pitcher. Okay, so is technology good or is technology bad? I think in this case, which is about 1960. And that is not me, but I just believe I probably had something like that. I just believe that I had probably something like that. So here's another thing about technology. I bring back this scary microfilm reader, the Codograph, I guess is what it says. But what has changed from this? We've gone from this to fuzzy slippers at 3 o'clock in the morning on our computer, right? How many of you are shaking your heads? Uh-huh, uh-huh. Maybe not those cutest slippers, but boy, raise your hand if you've been up at 3 o'clock on your computer searching. All right, education. The process of education has changed oh so much. I just don't think they sit there like that with their hands folded anymore. And any teachers in the room or on Zoom, I'm sure can maybe attest to that. My husband was a teacher. And then, of course, DGS. I would like to say that in my entire career, and like I said, like Sue said, I started in Peoria here in 87. I always knew of DGS. DGS has always been a leader in genealogical societies and in education and being active in my entire career. It was always like that. And even when I went to Houston, of course, there was always wanting to be the library and wanting to be like DGS there. So I appreciate the model and the mentoring that you guys did for me in my career. So let's talk about education. Learning is the key to knowing what you want to know, right? We're going to learn about it. That'll help us know it. And then I want to know this. Learning is the best way. So historically, we have meetings in person. Tony showed you some of the stuff from the Dallas Genealogical Society newsletter. Then we went to meetings not in person during the pandemic. Then we went to meetings kind of in person, which were kind of the hybrid meetings. Then we went back to meetings in person. And then we had this explosion of online learning during all this time because when we couldn't meet in person and we couldn't go out, we didn't know what to do. So then we had hybrid meetings and then we did a lot of independent learning. I would also like to have a shout out to Tony Hansen, who, when the pandemic came, really got all kinds of societies throughout Texas into the technology world. I know he did it for us at Clayton. We would not have been able to have the online meetings and the online programming that we had to move into. And the necessity, mother is the necessity, what is it? Nature is, what is it? The necessity of invention. And so, okay, we did online meetings, but then everybody wanted to get back together. Everybody wanted to meet again. So then we figured out it was safe. And then we had the issue of how do we do this? Once again, DGS, a leader in how to do this. But here we are. We did take trips and hopefully we had lunch and hopefully they're sitting there talking about family history and they just don't like to eat lunch in a cemetery. Maybe they do, which is okay too. They look pretty happy. I like that they took their purses there in case they bought something out there at the grave. But we did stuff together and we still read books. We went to the library and we're back at the library now. But still, we still have a thirst for education and there is plenty of education. And how did we learn and how do we learn? We can look on Facebook. Carrie Taplin, I think a lot of you know who Carrie is. She has a website of where she is speaking. So go to those speakers, your favorite speakers, and see what they're doing. We also can still read books. This book probably I know is online, a guidebook for American genealogy. Again, some of the old things still are very, very, very important. If you haven't looked at this book goes through all kinds of different record sources, a way to learn. The Family Search Wiki is another way to learn. We go online and go through the wiki and see what we can get to in terms of links for records and things like that. There are blogs, the Legal Genealogist. There are institutes and more institutes and more institutes and more webinars. They're everywhere. There's everywhere. And it can be overwhelming. So, and even more webinars. But fortunately, there is something called the Conference Keeper, an aggregate where you do not have to hunt and hunt and hunt, and you can go to the Conference Keeper and see what kind of education, whether in person or virtual, by topic. There's scholarships, there's different conferences and institutes, and this is a way to get the best education possible. I promised to tell you a little bit about one thing that I did that I found out in technology that really helped me out. Okay, so in the old days, before we had stuff, we would do presentations like this. We would maybe do a PowerPoint like this, or in the old days, we would use overheads, those clear plastic things, and we would trot out, now we're trotting out projectors, but we would trot out the big overhead. Well, some of you, if you are into some of the genealogy blogs and updates, you've heard about this notebook LM, which is a Google product. You don't need to register. So I thought, okay, I'll try it. We know about Chat GPT. We know about the MyHeritage photo enhancements, and other things, the family search full text. But this notebook LM, so what I did is I took a bunch of text and I put it in one of the components of this notebook LM, and this is what it gave me. I think that, for me, I happen to be very visual. We saw this earlier, okay? But this became that through AI. And to me, that is amazing, especially if you're visual. This is just one component. You can do summaries. This is just the infograph part of Notebook LM. But the advantages of using AI and being able to put in text and then running, I'm sure some of you, you talk about it, you have SIGs about this. Being able to use narrative to find anomalies, to find commonalities, to heighten our research. I think one of the big important things when somebody talks about, well, what if it overtakes us? You can think about the old Star Trek episodes or 2001: A Space Odyssey. I can't open up the door for you, Dave. But remember, we still control it and we're putting in the stuff. It's not really, now with full text search at Family Search, you can find things, but it's amazing for text and other things. And I think that what technology has done is it has brought us closer in doing research. It's given us family members that we didn't know. It's given us conversations to talk about with one another. It's given us camaraderie. It's given us an opportunity to take vacations and do things together and share things at a library. It's brought us together in meetings. And it's made us wonder about stuff that we're looking at. It's made us stand in the stacks for hours or even bring a chair because we know that our family is there. And it's made us very happy with, look at that, with all those printouts and that discovery. Okay, walking there at the library. You have an amazing collection. Some of you that are new to the library, some of you that are intermediate, some of you that have been around for a long time, the staff at the library, the information providers, utilize them. They know the collection and develop a dialogue with them to get to the root of your problem, because people want to have fun. It looks like you guys have had fun for years. There's interested people. And even in the old days, even wearing those scarves, ladies, I know that some of you wore those scarves. People came to the library because I wore that scarf. Okay, all right. So old technology, looking through books, it's important to do, and you guys have an amazing resource, and I'm so happy for your 70th anniversary. And one last look between then and now, just to sort of recap. Then we used to take our pictures to be developed at the photomat, and we got 3 copies of everything because we were going to go to that mailbox and put them in an envelope and put a stamp on it and mail them out to family and friends. But now we have millions of photos on our phone that we really don't know what to do with, and we have to go back and cull through them. That is my husband's daughter's wedding earlier in October. Then at one point, we had to have all kinds of tabs open so we could find out what's new and greatest in all the newsletters that were being published. But now we have an aggregate, and there are other ones. This is just an alert, a Google alert. So when some new content comes up, I can get alerted. You don't have to have 25 tabs open on my computer. We used to have to find somebody to transcribe or read a foreign language or transcribe, and we used to transcribe this way. Is that how you're doing those cemetery things, Tony? But now we have online translators. Of course, we know Google Translate, all these other things that we can put text into, and even non-Arabic languages. Okay, we can do that. We used to, again, say, where's your pedigree chart? Show me your pedigree chart. Here's my piece of paper that we would schlep around along with all the other pieces of paper that we still schlep around. But we've got them a lot digitized now. And now we have our online family trees that we can just open up instead of looking through all those bunches of papers. We have, of course, the meetings and the getting together. But then also we can meet online. We have resources online. In Facebook, you put in the word genealogy, you can find all kinds of groups to join. And then, of course, we used to use the card catalog, but now we have online catalogs. You should not only use the Dallas Public Library catalog, you should use the library catalog where you're researching. You should look at the Allen County Public Library to see what kind of books they have for you. You should look at the Family Search catalog and then use WorldCat to find out where that information is. And then you should go forth and do research and remember to save it and pass it on because we become ancestors. Happy anniversary, everybody. These are a couple things that I mentioned in the presentation, and thank you so much for letting me be part of it. I really appreciate it. I'm done.
Susan, that was such an outstanding presentation. And as one fellow 99% Ashkenazi to another, I think we're related.
Right, probably.
I look forward to brainstorming with you later on to how that is. But the room is open for questions. We have you on the screen. So hopefully if there is anyone who has any extra parts, of course, we also have cake that's also set up that we wish we could virtually share with you right now as well.
I appreciate it.
Does anyone have any questions or thoughts or thing to share? Oh, yeah. Well, hold on one second. We actually are getting there.
This has to do with the local cemetery project. Is it just Dallas County? Does it go beyond that? What are the?
That's a great question. I think Tony has got the microphone and ready to go.
It's mainly Dallas County, the city and county of Dallas. We've reached out I think just a little bit, but primarily that's our focus. Isn't that right, Susan? Or yeah.
Yes.
How do you find out what cemeteries are in need of
searching? It's
Yeah.
a great point. And then if you follow the directions that are online, it does talk through a little bit more. Any other deeper thoughts to that?
I'm not sure what your question was, though.
How do you find out what cemeteries have not been worked on?
Okay, so one of the things that is a feature on there is there's a Google map that shows all of the cemeteries in the Dallas region. And we've we've done about 50 of those. And so there are a lot of other cemeteries that have not yet been digitized. I'm going to hand this over to the woman who do most of the work. What's your criteria for deciding what you want to do next?
Well, I think one of the things that we want to do is to get all of those cemeteries that were recorded in the 1980s and 90s that the volunteer from DGS, some of them are some very small cemeteries, and we'd like to get those online. And then, Tony, we could make a list of ones that have nothing done for them and put that on the website if that would be useful. I mean, there are a lot of cemeteries out there that haven't been done by DGS. Like I was just by the Merrill Cemetery a couple of days ago, and I think they have their records, but we don't have them. So that would be one, we would look for.
Lovely.
Sue, I just have a comment for you. I loved your foodtimeline.org, and I wish you could see this beautiful cake and join us. It just looks like the party will continue shortly.
Well, I'm
Any
very
other
glad.
questions for Sue?
Okay.
All right. Well, with that, I think our meeting is ready to move on to cake. Sue, go Salukis, and we really truly appreciate you representing downstate so beautifully.
And you too. I mean, are you an Illinoisan?
Can you tell? Yes, absolutely. Champaign-Urbana for
Nobody. When you said Saluki, you gave it away.
That's-
Yes. Yes.
All right. Be well. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, guys. Thank you
Thank you
again.
so much.
Enjoy. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
This has been a production of the Dallas Genealogical Society. If you're already a member, thank you. Your fees have been supporting these and other society activities. If you're not yet a member, please consider joining now. Go to dallasgenealogy.org and click on the membership tab.